My name is Robert Faust. I was born on June 21st, 2030. I've been a chemist my entire life. Ever since I was a child, I was fascinated with chemistry. I've always wanted to find the cure for cancer to help humanity get past this terrible, debilitating disease. I was the chief chemist in the Harvard Medical University research facility. One day, I actually discovered a way to cure one of numerous cancers, which was considered one of the most aggressive forms of cancers, which was pancreatic cancer. I've worked on this project for 15 years until I developed the proper chemical formula to restore the pancreas to its original healthy state and making the cancer cells switch back to healthy cells. I've had a lab assistant named Tom Ford, who was also a doctorate in chemistry, but was the second man on the job, and we both worked on this project together in secret, since it was dangerous for it to be exposed. The big pharmaceutical companies didn't want such cures to be released, rather. Cancer was a major money maker for them because instead of curing it, they can make endless money off of various treatments, which still mostly were ineffective in my day. Once we figured out the chemical formula, we created a document with all of the information that was found and put it in the safe and locked it to the code 030687 so that Dr. Ford and I knew it. A week later, I came to work and looked inside of the safe, but the document was gone. I saw Tom later that day and asked him what happened. He seemed as shocked as I was and didn't know where it went. I felt a bit odd because only both of us knew the code, but I supposed that the code was somehow compromised, of which I wasn't sure how. I believed him and moved on with my day a little anxious about this incident, not knowing what to expect in the future. Fast forward to 9 months later. I find out on television that my assistant Tom Ford won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry, and this angered me tremendously. He not only lied to me, but betrayed me as well as stole the work that I mostly did. It turns out that he submitted this document in secret for his own safety to not be assassinated. When the Nobel Prize Committee reviewed it, and it was tested on lab animals first, then on actual test patients, the formula seemed to completely cure pancreatic cancer, and it was thought of as a miracle drug. He got the credit that I mainly deserved, and I was left in the dust. After he won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, he became world famous as a celebrity scientist and quit the lab before I could even have a talk with him. I was furious at how he completely turned on me while I trusted him. I went back to the lab to do further experiments, of which I've been working on numerous chemistry projects. I was also always fascinated with quantum physics, and in the year 2084, the X particle was discovered, which correlated with quantum physics, but in chemical compound. It was a mystery to most scientists, but I've done experiments with it since it was discovered to try to figure out its potential on how to tap into the quantum world of the multiverse. The multiverse was theorized to be an infinite number of universes with infinite possibilities, all parallel to each other in a single plane of existence. The idea behind quantum theory is that they were all interconnected, and I theorized that the X particle had the potential to tap into these possibilities. One day, my Katsua named Einstein walked across the table of where I experimented with the X particle in various glass tubes. Suddenly, as my cat ran across it, one of the tubes fell and broke another tube that had the initial formula that I created previously, which cured pancreatic cancer. I wouldn't think much of it if, after observing this happen before my eyes, when both formulas mixed, there were sparks of electricity for several seconds. As a seasoned chemist, I had to observe this phenomenon closely. So I scooped up this mix and put it into a glass container to do experiments with. I first decided to test this formula mix on lab mice, and I put 10 lab mice in a single glass cage while I injected one of the mice with this mixed formula. What I witnessed was absolutely phenomenal. All of the other 9 mice became subordinate to that one mouse that I injected the formula into, as if this experimented on mouse was their leader, although there were no physical differences between any of the mice specimen between each other. I then knew that I was onto something big here. There was something unusual going on, which for some reason made this mouse seem superior to all of the other ones that were in the cage with it. I tried the same thing but on rats, and the same result had occurred. I knew that it was time to test it on myself and see what this was all about, as I had a journal ready to write down the effects of this new, unknown chemical drug mixture. Before I injected this drug into myself, For a moment, I felt like Obert Hoffmann, who was a Swiss chemist to have first synthesized, ingest, and learn of the psychedelic effects of lysergic acid diethylamide, or better known as LSD. I had various medical devices attached to my body to monitor my blood pressure, radiation levels, temperature, and other vital signs of my body. I was also staring in the mirror in the corner of my laboratory to also observe the physical effects that this drug would have on my body. I thought to myself, this is it, here goes nothing. I have to see what will happen. I injected 6 milligrams of this substance into a vein of my right hand as I was left handed. Right after I injected this drug, I saw my pupils dilate to the large size that I've never seen them before, almost covering the entire space of my irises. Suddenly, I felt something strange, which almost felt like a hallucination, but I was also feeling sober. In my mind, I saw infinite choices of realities of which I existed in, as if I was tapped into the Akashic records of infinite possibilities, kind of like a selection menu on Netflix, but with infinite choices. The Akashic records in the religion of Theosophy and the spiritual movement called Anthroposophy. The Akashic records are believed by Theosophists to be a compendium of all universal events, thoughts, words, emotions, and intent ever to have occurred in the past, present, or future in terms of all entities and life forms. Not just human. They are believed by Theosophists to be encoded in a non-physical plane of existence known as the mental plane. I had a different life in each reality choice, every time. In one of them, I saw myself as a poor artist trying to make a living. In another, I saw myself as a billionaire playboy. In another, I saw myself as a politician. In another, I saw myself as a homeless person. And the realities were endless. I was still upset about Tom gaining my Nobel Prize in chemistry. So I chose the reality to right a wrong, where I won the Nobel Prize in chemistry for my work and Tom would be left in the dust, like I initially was in my own reality. I guess my ego overpowered my wisdom at the time, but I felt like I had to make things right again. Soon after, I quit the lab at Harvard University Research Facility, and with the Nobel Prize money, I bought a mansion in which I built my own lab to further my chemistry research. At this point, I was world famous as the scientist who cured pancreatic cancer. Yet still, I never told anyone about this secret quantum drug that I produced. Little did I know that it had some side effects that I wasn't aware of. The irony of the power of this drug is that it actually caused pancreatic cancer, and there was no way to stop it, even with the drug that I created to cure this disease. The cure was repelled by the effects of this quantum drug that I initially called XQJ for X quantum jumper. I found out that I had cancer too late, after a visit to my primary doctor after various medical tests. Another irony is that the more I used this XQJ drug, the more the cancer would spread and the more aggressive that it would become. So I decided to live my life in the fast lane and get as many impressions as I could before the cancer could completely eat me up and send me to my grave. I've lived out all of my childhood fantasies, from being an astronaut to a comedian and many other things, as I quantum jumped from one reality to another with the use of this drug. The cancer spread quickly and I became more sick. I was bedridden and realized the actual danger of this discovery of mine. I understood my own mistake, that I shouldn't have allowed my ego to guide me toward revenge on my assistant Tom, because I played myself in the end. I should have continued to live my life the way God would intend for it to be, but I chose my own path, which ended up with me become more and more ill. It felt like I sold my soul to the devil, and in return got to experience all of my pleasures at the expense of a horrific and a painful ending. I knew that to try fix the existence of this drug before I passed on. So for the last time on my deathbed in the hospital, I sneaked in some of this drug and injected it into me with a syringe. I chose to go back to the reality where this drug wasn't invented. Little did I know that it was the only break that I could get, since I went back to when this formula was not made. By the accident caused by my cat, I had none of it in me anymore. Therefore, the effects were reversed, and I was back to my old reality where Tom stole my idea and gained the world from it. I learned my lesson, and I knew that it's better this way, to take a loss and not allow my ego to guide my life, because nobody should be motivated by revenge and hurting others. The karma will come back to them in one way or another. I realized that only God can be God, and when a human tries to play God, they play themselves in the end. This was a major lesson for me. And even though I knew the formula to create this quantum drug that allowed for endless possibilities, I went back to my laboratory and destroyed my experiments with the X particle so there would be no chance of the XQJ drug to be created. I knew that it would be better this way, not only for me, but for the good of humanity. As I believed in the existence of God, I understood that only God gets to write the story of history. We're all just in it as God's characters, and maybe it's better this way to leave some things not in your control, but to gain the lessons of life the way you were meant to, the natural way. Although Tom stole my idea, at the very least I knew that it would help to save lives, and it wasn't all about me. Rather, my initial intent out of purity came to be true. I felt at peace with this idea and set my ego aside. He continued to work on my passion as a chemist in the aim to research to create cures for other cancers. One problem was solved, and I had the chance to dedicate the rest of my life to resolve more problems that would help humanity. At least this was the way I saw it, and it brought me a sense of peace to feel as though my existence was to serve the good of humanity as a true scientist that I imagined myself to be since my childhood.